Naples, Florida. Hurricane Irma strengthened to a Category 5 storm late Friday as it made landfall in Cuba, forecasters said, on a path predicted to bring it to Florida and potentially causing catastrophic damage. Irma, with maximum sustained winds of 160 miles per hour, was making landfall on Cuba's Camagüey archipelago as of 11 p.m. ET, the National Hurricane Center said. The storm was around 300 miles southeast of Miami and is forecast to be near the Florida Keys by Sunday morning. The massive hurricane is now forecast to travel along Florida's west coast, but it's so big that the hurricane-force winds extend all the way to the east coast, National Hurricane Center Acting Director Edward Rappaport said on MSNBC Friday. So while the trend to the west might be a little better for the east coast, it's actually much worse now for the Florida Keys and the West Coast, he said. They could see the most extreme of the winds and the storm surge. About 5.6 million people in Florida, more than 1/4 of the state's population, were ordered to evacuate and another 540,000 were told to leave the Georgia coast. The National Weather Service in Key West warned on Twitter Friday that nowhere in the Keys will be safe. "This is as real as it gets," the Weather Service said. Florida Governor Rick Scott on Friday warned people to leave the southern part of the state, and said that those not on the road by midnight should seek a nearby shelter. He said the storm is projected to be catastrophic. President Donald Trump in a video message Friday warned this is a storm of absolutely historic destructive potential. He urged everyone in its path to heed evacuation orders. Florida Power and Light, the nation's third-largest electric utility, warned it was expecting unprecedented power outages. FPL CEO Eric Silage said power outages could affect about 9 million people. Related, up to 9 million Floridians could be without power after Irma, some for weeks. The hurricane killed at least 23 people as it raked through the Caribbean earlier this week. The storm was a Category 5 with 160 miles per hour winds late Friday, slightly faster than earlier Friday when it was a Category 4. On Cuba, thousands of tourists were evacuated from low-lying keys off the coast dotted with all-inclusive resorts ahead of the storm's approach. All residents of the area were under mandatory evacuation orders from the Cuban government, which was moving tens of thousands of people from vulnerable coastline. The hurricane ravaged small islands in the northeast Caribbean, including Barbuda, St. Martin and the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, ripping down trees and flattening homes and hospitals. Rappaport said late Friday that the hurricane's maximum sustained winds might come down if it stays over land for several hours, but the danger posed to Florida will not change. It won't change that the hurricane-force winds extend out 75 miles from the center. It won't change that you're going to have a storm surge that's life-threatening, he said. The Keys could see a storm surge of 5 to 10 feet, with waves on top. The typically bustling downtowns of Miami, Fort Lauderdale and Naples were near empty Friday. Residents had either evacuated or were making last-minute preparations, resigned to sitting through the Category 5 hurricane in their homes and hoping for the best. Tony Marcellus struggled to figure out how to get his elderly mother and grandfather from their home near the ocean in West Palm Beach to his place in Atlanta, 600 miles away. Flights and rental cars were sold out, so he hired an Uber driver to take them 170 miles to meet him in Orlando. Manny Zuniga left his home in Miami at midnight Thursday and it still took him and his family 12 hours to get 230 miles to Orlando, a trip that normally takes 4 hours. "We're getting out of this state," he said, filling up the gas tank of his tightly packed SUV in Orlando. His final destination is a relative in Arkansas. Irma is going to take all of Florida, he added. At least 900 flights were cancelled in Florida as of Friday afternoon. Miami International Airport saw 75% of its schedule scrubbed. It will remain open but no flights are expected to arrive or depart on Saturday or Sunday. Gas supplies were put under strain. According to GasBuddy, 38% of gas stations in Miami/Fort Lauderdale are out of fuel and 55% of Gainesville stations were depleted. In response to the shortages, Scott directed Florida Highway Patrol to escort resupply trucks to gas stations. There are currently 1,700 members of Florida Highway Patrol working the roadways on 12-hour shifts, Scott said. The U.S. Navy on Friday ordered an aircraft carrier and 2 other ships to head to get underway to be in position to provide humanitarian and search assistance if necessary. A 4th ship conducting local operations was ordered to join the group, the Navy said. Georgia was also preparing for the hurricane effects of Irma. Governor Nathan Delano,